Most people were never taught how money works from a biblical perspective. They were taught to work hard, stay busy, and hope things improve. Yet Scripture reveals clear principles that explain why some people prosper while others remain stuck, even when they pray and believe. The truth is uncomfortable. Financial struggle is rarely just about income. It is often about broken thinking and a misunderstanding of how God designed prosperity to function. The Bible does not condemn business or the desire to make money. It confronts disorder, fear, and ignorance. And that's where transformation begins. This video is not about hype or shortcuts. It is about biblical principles that actually work in the real world. Principles that govern work, stewardship, and wealth creation, allowing money to serve instead of control. If you like our content, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. As you listen, don't just hear the words. Pay attention to what challenges you and what feels uncomfortably true. Because when understanding meets obedience, change becomes inevitable. The biblical traps that keep people broke. Many people struggle with money not because they lack effort, but because they fall into invisible spiritual and mental traps. From a biblical perspective, poverty often begins in the mind before it ever appears in the bank account. Proverbs 23:7 says, "As a man thinks in his heart, so is he." When thinking is misaligned, business decisions follow the same pattern. People work hard, pray sincerely, but still fail to make money because they unknowingly repeat the same destructive cycles. One of the most common traps is confusing spirituality with passivity. Some believe that trusting God means avoiding strategy, structure, or financial planning. Scripture never teaches that faith replaces wisdom. It teaches that faith activates wisdom. Proverbs 21:5 reminds us that the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. Biblical faith does not reject planning. It demands it. Those who refuse to plan often call it faith, but in reality, it is spiritualized disorganization. Another trap is the fear of responsibility that comes with growth. Many want the blessing, but not the accountability that follows it. In the parable of the talents, Matthew 25:14-30, the servant who buried his money was not punished for losing it, but for refusing to steward it. God expects multiplication, not preservation through fear. This principle applies directly to business. Avoiding calculated risk and skill development guarantees stagnation, no matter how spiritual the intentions sound. There is also the trap of emotional decision-making with money. The Bible consistently warns against being led by impulse. Proverbs 14:29 teaches that patience leads to understanding, while impulsiveness leads to folly. People often spend, invest, or quit based on feelings rather than data, counsel, and long-term vision. In modern terms, this looks like jumping into trends, quitting business ideas too early, or avoiding learning because discomfort feels like danger. Another silent trap is listening to voices without fruit. Scripture says, "By their fruit you shall know them," Matthew 7:16. Yet many take financial advice from people who have never built anything sustainable. Biblical wisdom encourages learning from those who have demonstrated stewardship, discipline, and consistency. If someone has never learned how to make money wisely, their advice will rarely lead to abundance, no matter how confident they sound. At the core of all these traps is a deeper issue that most people overlook: misunderstanding what God actually expects from those He blesses. The Bible does not separate spiritual maturity from financial responsibility. This tension between calling and execution opens the door to the next principle, which reframes what prosperity truly means in God's design, and why wisdom must always come before wealth. Work, wisdom, and stewardship. How the Bible defines prosperity. The Bible presents prosperity very differently from how modern culture defines success. While the world measures wealth by accumulation alone, Scripture frames prosperity through work, wisdom, and stewardship. Deuteronomy 8:18 states that it is God who gives the ability to produce wealth, which means money is not accidental, nor is business success random. Prosperity flows when effort aligns with wisdom and responsibility, not when people chase shortcuts to make money. Work, in biblical terms, is not a curse, but a channel. From the Garden of Eden, Adam was assigned responsibility before he ever experienced lack. Proverbs 14:23 says, "All hard work brings a profit, but mere talk leads only to poverty." This principle applies directly to modern business. Talking about ideas, praying for opportunities, or dreaming about success without execution produces nothing. Scripture honors consistent, disciplined effort applied over time. Wisdom is the multiplier that turns work into results. Ecclesiastes 10:10 explains that sharpening the axe increases effectiveness. In financial terms, this means developing skills, learning systems, and understanding how markets work. Reading books like The Intelligent Investor or Rich Dad, Poor Dad, studying financial statements, or learning how compound interest works are not secular distractions. They are tools of stewardship. The wise learn, so their labor produces more with less wasted energy. Stewardship is where most people misunderstand biblical prosperity. Psalm 24:1 reminds us that everything belongs to the Lord. People do not own money, they manage it. This mindset changes how business decisions are made. Instead of asking, "How much can I get?" a steward asks, "How well can I manage what flows through my hands?" Budgeting, reinvesting profits, tracking expenses, and planning taxes are spiritual acts when done with integrity and discipline. Jesus reinforced this principle repeatedly by praising faithful managers, not emotional followers. Luke 16:10 teaches that faithfulness in small things qualifies a person for greater responsibility. In practical terms, someone who cannot manage $1,000 wisely will struggle with $100,000. Wealth grows where order exists. Chaos repels increase, regardless of prayer intensity. Understanding prosperity as work guided by wisdom and expressed through stewardship changes the entire approach to money and business. This perspective naturally raises an important question. If prosperity flows through value and responsibility, what exactly causes God to multiply one person's effort while another remains stuck? That question leads directly into the principle of value, service, and skill development. Why skill, value, and service come before wealth. The Bible makes it clear that increase follows value, not desire. Many people pray for money while ignoring the responsibility of becoming valuable. Proverbs 22:29 says, "Do you see a man skilled in his work? He will stand before kings." Skill creates access, and access creates opportunity. In business, those who consistently make money are rarely the most spiritual or the most passionate, but the most useful in solving real problems. Value is always connected to service. Jesus himself framed greatness through service, not status. When someone builds a product, a service, or a solution that genuinely improves lives, wealth becomes a byproduct. This principle explains why businesses that solve painful, urgent problems grow faster, whether it is healthcare, education, technology, or finance. People pay for relief, efficiency, and clarity. The marketplace rewards service that works. Skill development is the bridge between intention and results. Ecclesiastes 9:10 instructs believers to work with excellence in whatever their hand finds to do. In practical terms, this may mean learning sales, communication, accounting, marketing, or investing fundamentals. Someone who understands how businesses generate cash flow, how pricing works, or how to read basic financial reports immediately gains leverage in the modern economy. Biblical examples reinforce this truth. Joseph did not rise in Egypt because of prayer alone, but because he combined divine wisdom with administrative skill. He understood logistics, forecasting, and resource management. By solving Pharaoh's economic crisis, Joseph preserved nations and built generational wealth structures. His story reveals that God often uses competence as the channel through which favor flows. In today's context, this principle looks very practical. A person skilled in digital marketing can build online businesses. Someone who understands real estate underwriting can create passive income streams. Investors who study long-term market behavior, such as index funds like the S&P 500, position themselves for steady growth instead of emotional speculation. Skill reduces risk and increases consistency in making money. When value, service, and skill align, wealth becomes sustainable instead of fragile. This naturally raises a deeper question. Once value begins producing income, how should a believer structure business so growth does not collapse under its own weight? That question opens the door to understanding why structure must always come before expansion. Building business. God's way. Structure before expansion. Scripture consistently teaches that growth without structure leads to collapse. Jesus illustrated this clearly when he spoke about building a house on a solid foundation rather than on sand. In business, structure is that foundation. Many people pray for expansion, more money, and greater opportunities to make money, but they neglect systems, processes, and discipline. Proverbs 24:3-4 explains that, "By wisdom a house is built, and through understanding it is established. Growth is sustained only where order exists." Structure begins with clarity. Clear roles, clear finances, and clear goals are not optional. They are biblical principles. Luke 14:28 asks, "Who would start building without first counting the cost?" In modern terms, this means understanding cash flow, expenses, margins, and timelines. A business owner who does not track numbers is not walking by faith. They are walking blindly. Financial clarity protects both peace and progress. God's way of building business values, delegation, and systems. Moses learned this lesson when Jethro advised him to organize leadership and delegate responsibility. Without structure, Moses would have burned out. Exodus 18 shows that God honors systems that multiply leadership. In business, this looks like documented processes, automation, and training others to operate without constant supervision. Systems allow growth without exhaustion. Order also applies to legal and financial structure. Wise entrepreneurs understand the importance of separating personal and business finances, choosing proper entities, and planning taxes responsibly. Romans 13 emphasizes respect for lawful structure, which includes operating businesses with integrity and compliance. When structure is ignored, growth becomes dangerous. When structure is honored, expansion becomes sustainable. Expansion without preparation often destroys what prayer built. Proverbs 13:11 warns that wealth gained hastily diminishes, but wealth gathered little by little grows. Scaling too fast without systems leads to stress, customer dissatisfaction, and financial leaks. Growth must be paced by capacity, not desire. God multiplies what is managed well, not what is rushed. Once structure is in place, growth becomes predictable instead of chaotic. This naturally leads to a critical question. After income stabilizes and business systems mature, how should money be positioned to multiply responsibly over time? That question introduces the biblical principles of multiplication and investing. Multiplication, not just income, biblical investing principles. The Bible never presents wealth as something to be stored passively, but as something designed to grow through wise positioning. Earning money is only the first step. Multiplying it is the responsibility of stewardship. Jesus made this unmistakably clear in the parable of the talents, where servants were rewarded not for effort alone, but for increase. In business and finance, money that is not intentionally invested slowly loses power through inflation, poor decisions, or inactivity. Biblical investing begins with patience and long-term thinking. Ecclesiastes 11:2 encourages diversification, teaching that spreading resources protects against uncertainty. This principle aligns perfectly with modern investing wisdom. Long-term vehicles like S&P 500 index funds allow capital to grow steadily while reducing emotional decision-making. Dollar-cost averaging, investing consistently over time, reflects biblical discipline more than speculative shortcuts ever could. Another key principle is compounding, which mirrors God's design for growth in nature. Just as seeds multiply over seasons, capital grows when allowed time and consistency. Proverbs 13:22 teaches that a good person leaves an inheritance to future generations. Reinvesting dividends instead of consuming them immediately accelerates compounding and builds momentum that cannot be replicated by quick wins. Small, faithful actions over time produce disproportionate outcomes. Risk management is also deeply biblical. Proverbs 27:12 praises those who see danger and prepare for it. This does not mean avoiding risk entirely, but understanding it. Wise investors study before allocating capital. They learn the difference between assets and liabilities, between speculation and ownership. Investing without knowledge is gambling, not stewardship. Wisdom reduces unnecessary losses and protects future opportunity. The Bible also emphasizes tax awareness, even if indirectly. Jesus acknowledged lawful obligations while teaching wisdom in financial dealings. Using tax-advantaged accounts such as retirement plans reflects responsible planning, not greed. These tools allow money to grow more efficiently, preserving more resources for impact, generosity, and future security. Order multiplies what chaos consumes. When investing is done with wisdom, patience, and structure, money begins to serve instead of control. But multiplication does not stop with personal comfort. Once wealth grows, a deeper responsibility emerges. How should abundance shape legacy, influence, and future generations? That question leads into the final principle of generational thinking and lasting impact. Legacy thinking, from money to generational wealth. The Bible frames wealth as a tool meant to outlive the individual, not merely to elevate a lifestyle. Proverbs 13:22 declares that a wise person leaves an inheritance for their children's children, revealing that God's vision for money extends beyond one lifetime. Generational wealth is not about excess. It is about continuity, stability, and impact. In business, This means building assets and systems that remain productive long after the original builder steps back. Legacy thinking begins with mindset. Many people manage money only for survival or comfort, never considering what their financial decisions will mean 10, 20, or 50 years from now. Scripture consistently pushes believers to think in seasons and generations. Psalm 112 describes the righteous as those whose wealth and riches endure in their houses. Endurance is the key word. Wealth that disappears quickly was never structured to last. From a practical standpoint, generational wealth is built through ownership, not consumption. Assets such as businesses, real estate, and long-term investments create streams of income that can support future generations. Teaching children financial literacy, discipline, and stewardship is just as important as leaving them resources. Deuteronomy 6 emphasizes passing wisdom intentionally, not assuming it will transfer automatically. Biblical legacy also includes generosity and purpose. Wealth that serves only the owner eventually collapses inward. Acts 20:35 reminds believers that it is more blessed to give than to receive. Strategic generosity strengthens families, communities, and ministries while reinforcing the truth that money is a servant, not a master. When giving is built into financial structure, wealth becomes sustainable and meaningful. Business plays a critical role in legacy creation. A well-structured company can outlive its founder, provide employment, solve problems, and generate value for decades. This requires documentation, leadership development, and succession planning. Proverbs 20:18 teaches that plans succeed with counsel, reinforcing the importance of advisors, mentors, and legal structure in preserving what has been built. When money, business, and faith align under legacy thinking, wealth becomes a platform rather than a destination. The question is no longer how much can be made, but how responsibly it can be carried forward. This understanding reframes everything that came before and prepares the foundation for applying these principles intentionally and consistently in real life. Everything you've heard in this video leads to one simple realization. Wealth is not random, and it is never neutral. Money either follows wisdom, structure, and discipline, or it quietly disappears through disorder and emotion. The Bible shows repeatedly that those who prosper do so because they align their actions with truth, not because they chase outcomes. The question now is not whether these principles work, it's whether you will apply them. Ask yourself honestly, what would change in your life if you treated money as a responsibility instead of a reward? What would happen if your business decisions were guided by wisdom rather than urgency? Prosperity does not begin with a breakthrough. It begins with obedience in small, consistent actions that compound over time. Every choice you make today is shaping your financial future, whether you are aware of it or not. True transformation happens when knowledge turns into action. Reading, learning, and agreeing are not enough. Wealth grows where discipline lives. If you start applying even one principle consistently, whether it's structure, skill development, investing wisely, or thinking generationally, momentum begins to form. And once momentum exists, change becomes difficult to stop. Write in the comments, "I align my money with God's principles," and watch how this powerful declaration begins to shift the course of your business and your finances from this day forward. If this message challenged you, encouraged you, or revealed something you had never considered before, consider supporting our ministry through the link in the description. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you can continue learning how biblical wisdom applies to money, business, and building a life of purpose and impact.